Okay, so here is where we were beforehand, and this is the tessellation plan again, just the rotation symmetry. And towards the end of the last video, I alluded to the fact that we can start colouring this in to apply a bit more definition. So that's exactly what we're going to do now. So this usually helps to create a bit more definition, but also some ideas of how you can use different colours. I usually begin with just thinking about adding 2 colours, but as time goes on and you get even more ideas about what you can do, you can start thinking about 3 or 4 colours. So you can draw those before swatching them as well. You just have tons. And you can also make copies of this as well. You can draw the pattern several times, or you can photocopy it, or you can just take a tracing. It doesn't matter what you do, but I recommend once you've got an idea like this that you're happy with, that you just make a few duplicates so that you can just get on and just run with whatever ideas you've got coming up. So what I think I might do is just begin by colouring in these little squares at the centre. This is where we started out with the tessellation here. And even though the pattern looks interesting in its own right, just adding the colour will help you see even more shapes. We talked about the X's or the crosses forming as we rotated the diamonds around, and applying colour is going to be even more fascinating once we get going and start developing ideas within the shapes we've got. So just going to work around filling in these dark squares, and you can do this any way you want with your own design, but what I'm going to do is to keep the diamonds light, so these bits here, and then start colouring in the X's. You could do it the other way around, of course. Just go wherever your imagination takes you. This is not prescriptive at all. I'm just working really freely and intuitively here. So thinking about, different things we could do in the middle here, different shapes. And again, this is just me freewheeling it. I don't have any plan at all. And you don't need to have one necessarily. You don't need to have an inspiration images. If you're testing things out for the first time, you can just play. And so what I'm going to do, just to begin in the top left corner, is to just do maybe an X within an X. So I'm just going to pick out a corner that I feel is big enough to work into. So I feel like this bit up here is too small. So I'm just going to draw some squares. And again, I'm just working fairly systematically like I did before, just making sure that all the areas match so that I don't make any mistakes. And I'm just going to fill in those corners, working in towards the center of my X shape. And I think what I might do here is just make those squares gradually bigger as we get towards the middle. So we've got this at each corner of the X or cross. And then I think for the middle, well, it makes more sense to just do another one of these bigger squares, so I will. And then with this shape within a shape, now I can think about applying a little bit more colour again for contrast, just to see how that looks. So I think what I'll do is colour in the larger X, if you will. I'm just going to colour that. And then just see how that looks. So you don't have to be particularly neat with this. This is just doing enough so that you can get a feel for how the design is coming together. And then already you can just see something that is the beginning of the design that you might want to knit up. So if you wanted to, you could use the entire grid that you've created and just replicate this design across all 4 squares, or all 4 crosses, whichever way you want to look at it. But what I'm going to do is to just show you how different the one basic geometric plan can look depending on what you do with the spaces in between. So again, I'm just going to stick to the crosses in the middle, but you could absolutely do something similar with the diamond shapes if you so wished. So that's an even more directions for you to go in as far as experimentation goes. So I'm just going to finish filling this one in. I'm just nearly there. And I'm going to move on to the next square and just do something completely different again. Well, maybe not completely different, but just a variation on that theme. So I think what I might do is maybe start with the same corner again, but then just vary the size of the squares even more. So what I'm really getting at here is that you don't need to change a huge amount as you work from one thing to the next. Sometimes just changing one thing at a time can have a massive impact. And that's really the key to idea generation. I mean, sometimes you don't need to work as hard as you think you do to have a big impact or get the thing, or create something interesting. If you like the idea of generating ideas without, running yourself ragged or, working yourself into the ground, I have a taster course on idea generation. And if you like this, you might like that as well. But either way, you can't go wrong with just changing one thing at a time. And that's often how I work when I'm designing patterns. And you get much more purchase on an idea. You don't have to work quite so hard to get something new or beautiful. So that finishes that one. You can see it's similar to the first one that I did, but a bit different, but it's going to have a different appearance again. So what I might do here, and this is again completely up to you, I might colour in the tiny squares this time, just to mix things up. And so each of these little sketches within the X is a different idea. What you can do, and I won't have time today, but hopefully after watching this, you can see exactly how to do it for yourself, is to just pick one of these designs with the X's and the diamonds and draw it onto another fresh sheet of paper and then repeat it all over the place, exactly as we did with the rotation symmetry. And towards the end, I'll just try and put together a little montage so that you can see how each of these look. But, just from one starting point, you can do absolutely loads. So I'm just going to finish with that one. That's here. And I think what I might do, again, I'm quite enjoying this whole diamond thing, filling out the X's. I'm just going to do another thing here, a kind of argyle pattern. So I'm just going to work from the corners into the center, and I'm going to try not to get too carried away again, just to make sure that I'm doing everything to match. And I would also say here that don't worry if you don't know if you like something or not. I mean, that's really not what it's about. I mean, what you really are looking for is to just explore, and you never know where an idea might take you. So if you think, oh, I don't know if I like it, just keep going, keep going. It's much easier to just edit down rather than have to go back to something to find that, oh, maybe I could have done a bit more at this stage. But what I hope that you'll find when you try this is that you just have so many ideas that you just give yourself so much choice for your final design, and maybe even more than one design as well. There's no reason why you can't have more than one thing. So I'm going to keep building that up, just making sure that I am keeping myself out of trouble and honest with this. And yep, I've made it into the center safely. Woohoo! And now I'm going to just colour in this little bit as well. So again, just variations on the theme. I'm working into the middle, and I'll just shade in these tinsy squares. And then I just need to come up with an idea for the last one. And maybe, you know, as you're watching this, you've got some ideas of what I could do here. And, you know, I love teaching this kind of thing live because it's wonderful to just hear other people see how it works and bringing the techniques to life. And also seeing how accessible it is as well. I would not call myself a genius at all. And I hope that, you know, not saying that you're not a genius, but that you don't have to work hard to get really impactful results from a technique like this. So this last square, what shall we do? Let's go with let's just start with the center this time. I've worked from the corners going out. And let's fill in these bits, see how that looks. So again, just working around, just being playful and free. Remember, I've got absolutely no plan here. You don't have to have one. And yeah, let's do something here. And fill these in. Okay, and let's go for something like that. Let's just put a square in. So what you'll get with these is just like a family of designs. And again, remember, we're just not changing a lot at one time. We're just doing one thing and seeing how it looks and whether we want to take it any further or not. So, I'm just going to keep working around. Again, just being really systematic with it. And then for the last one. And yeah, so there we have it. So we've got our tessellation plan. We have got 4 different ideas for filling in the center. And some of them are more similar than others. Some of them look quite different. But this is where we could move on to the next stage. Like I say, just picking one and then turning that into a full pattern and filling up a page and seeing what else we come up with. So the next part involves showing you what you can do after developing your tessellation ideas on the grid framework. And we've got as far as doing 4 separate ones. And so what I'm going to show you now is all the different ways that you can explore this and use them as a jumping off point for developing even more tessellation designs. So these are the 4 we had. And the other thing to mention is that using the different size paper I mentioned earlier, the 2mm or 1/4" squared paper, changing the scale can give you a completely different perspective on the design that you have. So you can see here that you can pick up many more shapes just because of the scale and the size of the pattern, and that in turn gives you more ideas and inspiration for developing your ideas. So I just wanted to show you this as well. And you can also make traces or photocopies of that. This is just a very quick trace or photo or copy that I did. The only thing I would say is that if you want to keep the squares of the original graph paper, then make sure that you darken the photocopying settings so that it picks those up, especially if they're in blue like mine are here. So this is fine if you just want to doodle ideas or explore and you're not too bothered about placement. You don't need to be precise. But if you do, then darken the photocopy settings so that you don't lose any of the square detail. So here's those two, and I'm just going to show you a couple more ideas. So using that same copy, I've decided to go for two variations of the same pattern. So in one, at the top, we have got an inverted colours. So we've got lights, we have lights which are dark and darks which are light. And let me just turn that around so that they're both in portrait, so that they're a bit better. Yep, there we are. That's not bad. So yeah, and that can make a massive difference to your design as well. So you haven't changed anything fundamentally about it. You have just altered the color placement, and that can give you a completely different look. You might see different shapes, for example, depending on what's dark and what's light. And again, haven't done anything different to the foundations of the pattern. It's just literally color placement. And this is just a very simple fill of grey as well. If you wanted to, you could experiment with stripes, whatever you fancy. I find it easier to work in monochrome when I'm designing like this, and then I'll just use more of the blank templates to experiment with later. But you'll see completely different things as you go through this exercise of design development. So just put those to one side. And this one here, if I just go back, landscape, this is a variation of one of the original 4 that I had. So if I just go back and pick up that sheet, I've inverted the colours here, so you can see that it's very like this one here in the bottom left of the original sheet where we were doing the 4. And I've just inverted the colours. I've made the lights dark and the darks light. And you'll also know, if you're a very detail-oriented person, that I've gone beyond the line of the original cross motif, and that's absolutely fine. You don't have to stick to it rigidly at all. I mean, I just filled it in because I felt it made more sense for the development of the pattern. But the lines or the grid framework, this is just there for you to use as a guideline. You can go beyond that as well. You don't have to be rigid. It's your design. You develop it however you see fit. And so that's what I did here. So just coloured in 2 to make it a little bit more square as it is on the grid paper, and just see how that changed the appearance of the pattern. It gave me more opportunity to use the centres of the diamonds to fill in something there. And even beyond this, I could fill in more squares so that it has a bit more of a grid framework. But this is another place where I might make another copy of the design. Because sometimes, as I've been saying repeatedly, I know, even just one small change, just changing one thing, can have a massive impact. And so it's definitely worth making copies of something when you're at a juncture like this so that you can compare things side by side. And I would recommend, if you're undecided about something or if you just need time to let it simmer down, pop things up on a notice board or stick them to the fridge with a magnet and then just walk around them for a few days just to see how you feel, what jumps out at you, whether you want to go back and revise something or you have an idea. Always a really good idea to just step back and take in your work and think, okay, am I happy with it? Am I not happy with it? And sometimes it happens that you don't need to do this at all, but I would always recommend this kind of cooling off and reflection period once you've been generating lots of ideas. If any of you have ever done life drawing or any kind of still life drawing, your teacher would probably have told you to step back from the easel and really take in the composition of your work. And that's what you're doing here when you pin things up on a notice board or the fridge, just to have a good look at what you've done. So the scale and perspective is really important for tessellations. Just take your time and develop it. There's no hurry anywhere at all. Don't put pressure on yourself and just really enjoy playing around with the patterns. So this was a larger scale one that I've kept on the original size paper, but I'm just going to jump to the smaller size paper again, and just to show you how different things can look. I'm just going to turn things landscape again so we can get these two things side by side. So now these are not identical patterns, but you can already see that the scale can make a huge difference to how you perceive the shapes as well. So even quite aside from the colour placement and how I've arranged the motifs, the details that I've filled in, always worth drawing it on the small and large scale. And again, if you'd rather not redraw and you have access to a photocopier, you can always enlarge or shrink the image as well to make it quicker. But no harm with redrawing. You can draw as much as you like, basically. And sometimes that can be really helpful too, because it means that you get to know your own pattern really well. So this was a smaller one, and quite like this, just experimenting with just different fills in for the X's. Did not do too much with the diamonds on this one, just kept them very simple, left it like that. But for this last one here that I'm going to show in this group, I did the opposite. I did something with the diamond shape and filled in the crosses, and that looks completely different again, just through where I've put the dark and light colours and also how I've applied the colour detail. So I'll just put these last two side by side, just so you can register that. And so you can see same geometric plan for all of these throughout, but they look completely different because of how the colour has been applied. So I really hope that this inspires you to see how you could get so many ideas out of one framework, just applying colour, how you fill in the shapes and working outside the lines to discover even more patterns and opportunities for design development. I'd probably say design development is my favourite stage of all in the process. Absolutely love just playing around, getting all sorts of ideas, and I hope that this inspires you to do the same. I absolutely love teaching this, and I hope I've passed on some of that enthusiasm to you as well. Right, so that's it for the tessellation bonus material. I hope you really enjoyed it and that you're inspired to go off and create many more of your designs. And as you saw through the various ideas and variations that I showed you, that it's finished when you've had enough. Basically, there's so many ways that you can work back in to one plan to vary it, and also just seeing what else pops out at you when you change the scale, change the color application, all of that good stuff. So as before, I'm Natalie Warner. You can find me on the internet, as Natalie in Stitches. That's what I am on YouTube and Instagram, and that's my website as well, natalieinstitches.com. And again, love to see what you're up to. Please come and say hello. I'm going to be more active on YouTube, on Instagram at the time of recording, so you might be better off looking for me there rather than anywhere else. And I also have a newsletter as well that you can sign up to for more tips and stuff about designing and making clothes. So until next time, I wish you all the best with your design endeavours. Take care.